Welcome to the Good Ride. Today I'm talking about the Weston Gnarnia, and this has mostly a big mountain freeride personality, but it doesn't mind if you choose to mellow out on occasion and just make some mellow turns, maybe even butter a little bit. It's got a fast base, pretty competent grip, decent but not amazing directional float and powder, and while it's not suited really for lower angle powder, not that it's marketed that way, and it keeps changing its name. This was formerly the Ridgeline, and before that I think the 10th Mountain, but seems to be almost the same board. This isn't bad, and I really had a good time on it this year. It's always been right on that edge of being a Good Ride favorite, and this year it's nudged its way into that world, and I even liked it better than the 157 Backwoods, which really is a fun board too, but just didn't shine as much this year. I rode this primarily with my Union Force and my Nitro Team TLS, and I got this in a decent amount of conditions, and of course in the past when it was the Ridgeline, I got that in a wide variety of conditions as well. And this is an honest, objective review for you, the consumer. Weston has no say in what I say. If you want to support objective content like that, then give our sponsor, Blower Board Shop, a good look, click through our links, and buy through their store. They're very deserving of your hard-earned cash, because they're a family-run business that's been selling to snowboarders longer than most snowboarders have been allowed on the hill. Now let's talk sizing. This 162, while it was super fun when the conditions were clean, it was just a little too much for my specs, especially my size 9 boots when the conditions got uneven. I greatly prefer the 158. That is more my all-day ride. Now when it comes to shape, this is tapered and directional with a much longer nose than tail, but it's only 9 millimeters of taper, and it doesn't feel that tapered. And on groomers, you feel a little more centered on board than you'd think. And this has a pretty standard 20 millimeters of setback on side cut at about a 21.5, 21.6 inch stance width. Now, if you compare setback on side cut to actual setback on board, you're looking at 2.75 inches back from center of board at the same 21.6 inch stance width. Now, if you want to set it all the way back for, let's say, a really deep powder day, you can get 3.625 inches back from center of board at about a 22.25 inch stance width. That's about standard for most freeride boards. Not amazing, but far from being a slouch either. Now, when it comes to the camber profile, you have a mellow, not very high camber that goes well past the inserts and then transitions into a touch of early rise before the tail and a little bit more before the nose. It has that camber-like feel, that stability that we all love. It one-foots and flat bases exceptionally well, but what I like about this, it doesn't feel that locked in and technical. I think if sized correctly, a committed intermediate could easily ride this. You might take a few more lumps, but overall, I think it's very doable, and it's a far cry from being full camber. And I think advanced expert riders will love this and never get really bored with this. Now, when it comes to edge hold, this multi-radius side cut seems to show different angles when you look down the side cut like this, and it's hard to show on camera, but it's got a mellow disruption to it. Even though it's a multi-radius side cut, it does have different angles where it grips and holds, and it feels really competent in hard snow. It's no full-on ice specialist, and in some hard snow conditions I did have to dial back my turns a little bit to keep from washing out, but overall it's pretty good, especially when you hit a surprise patch that you're not expecting. It usually doesn't slide out and it holds really well, so I think overall it's a very competent grip. Let's talk Gnarnia Flex here. It is definitely on the medium stiff side, and it is just really easy. The tail is very stiff. Between the feet is pretty stiff. There's maybe a touch more give here than the tail, but it really is stiff from the tail through this camber profile and then into the nose. It's a good bit softer, and this is where most of the flex is happening, from this longer nose into the early rise, and then when the camber starts, that's when the easy flexing party stops. So even though this is a somewhat mellower flex for a big mountain board, it still has a good bit of dampness and great performance in soft, uneven snow and hard, uneven snow. I thought this performed very well. This handles chunder pretty well, especially off that tail. It doesn't buck and bounce as much, even though there's some carbon there. And I think the carbon helps hold it. And then this top sheet and sidewall keeps it from bucking out and popping out too much. And it's not terribly hard to butter in the tail, but it is definitely more work than the nose, which is a good bit softer, of course. But I liked buttering on the nose, and especially with a 58 that would fit my specs and riding style a good bit better. And then when it comes to pop, this isn't super poppy, but it's far from being dead either. It's a nice balance between being poppy and being damp. I felt like it was pretty easy to access this pop, and I actually liked it better this time around. And if you're looking to launch off some really big shit off-piste, drop a cliff or two, this will be your buddy. And if you're somebody like me who just launches off little tiny things here and there, you're trying to keep your joints working for a long period of time so you don't go big anymore, this is still really fun. And that speaks again to the duality of this board. It can go big or go small, and it's not going to be cranky in either mood. And this is not bad switch. And I would enjoy riding the 58 in the pipe. It could even hit the jump park. It's just not the best jibber. Let's talk turning here. This 62 was a little slow for me because with size 9 boots, I'm a little far away from the edges, but it's manageable. And if I had the 58, it would be medium fast instead of medium. And it would get wherever I needed it to go when I needed it to. It's not the perfect board when set all the way back and riding in the trees. To make hard rights and lefts, I feel like there's a little too much tail for my taste. But if you're in steeper conditions and you need to make quick turns, this does fine. And when I got this on edge, there was a lot more spring out of the turn than I thought there would be for this kind of mellow camber profile. It really holds into the turn and gives you a little bit out of it, a lot more than I thought it would be. And this has a multi-radius side cut. It starts out 10 meter, then goes to 8.1, then goes to 7.8, and then 9.1 out the back. It definitely favors those down the line, longer drawn out turns. It can make medium radius turns, but it has a competent enough across the groomer carve that doesn't make it just a straight liner board. And of course, if you want to point it, yes, this can handle speed really well. The side cut and the construction will keep it pretty damp. The nose, I didn't feel too much chatter with, and this is more than fine for long, sustained straight lines. Now, when it comes to base glide, the name of this centered Duracell 4401 does not properly express the base glide that you get with all Weston boards. It's upper tier. There is excellent glide, excellent wax retention, and it's a pretty hard, durable base. Of course, I don't like this die cut and this white part, but gosh, they do it so well, I don't even feel it. And most of it's black, so it's easy to repair. And when it comes to powder, I've gotten the predecessors, the Ridgeline and the 10th Mountain in split and solid in varied forms of powder. Everything from a decent amount of powder, maybe knee high in Jackson, to lots of varied powder in Bachelor, some light and fluffy, some thick and deep. And this has the same shape with maybe a touch more setback on board, very similar nose and tail. I found the float to be good, but not great. It's exactly what you'd expect for this kind of board. It's best for steeper terrain. It's not best for those that see a lot of low angle powder. It can be a little more work on the back leg in those conditions, but medium on up to steep, this is a champ. If you're somebody who takes on your powder days centered and you like to get big air, this is going to be a good friend. So overall, I really had a good time with the Gnarnia this year. If you live in a place with a lot of steeper terrain that you often hit, but you also want a board that can mellow out when the mood strikes, this is a great choice.